Well, one of the main challenges in regulation compliance is there's just so much data and it's changing so quickly. It's very much AI supporting human compliance professionals in their job. I mean, it's really important to have that oversight. And I think, there's a danger as well of automation complacency. I see it as a tool that's helping humans, helping us do what we need to do or want to do.
Oisin Boydell, thank you very much for joining us on the AI Ireland podcast today. You are coming in as Chief Data Officer at Corlytics. Before you spent 10 years at Ceadar. I'm guessing it was quite a change.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. It was, but it was, I think, a good time to get into something different, to make a change. I was, 10 years or so at Ceadar, working across a lot of different projects with different industries and, very cutting edge AI innovations, which was really exciting. But I kind of felt like I wanted to sort of focus a bit more deep in one kind of specific area, some specific industry, hence the move.
Yeah, because it's so helpful being a generalist and again, I said that generalist still within AI, it's still very, very niche in the area. But then kind of going down more into kind of regulatory kind of compliance area, have you been surprised how niche it is in some ways, but how complicated and detailed it is in its own right, that to become an expert in it's probably a real challenge?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd be the first to say I'm not an expert in regulation and compliance. That's the legal analysts and the legal experts in that area. But bringing AI to regulation and compliance, that industry, like it's hugely exciting, and there's huge opportunities there to apply these technologies to solve a lot of the problems that they have in that.
So when you actually think about how AI can do that, is AI looking at the rules and kind of regulations and helping to kind of automate and streamline the kind of the processes, or putting in kind of different types of checklists in one way? Or are you trying to help the systems and processes and try to keep a kind of a golden thread on it? Or is there a variety of different ways to go at it?
Well, one of the main challenges in regulation compliance is there's just so much data and it's changing so quickly. There's regulations and rules being updated all the time. There's different jurisdictions all over the world, and there's different sort of focus areas of that, whether it's financial compliance to AI compliance and AI regulation. So managing that complexity just is really difficult. And what AI can provide and help in that is just to manage this complexity of data. And also, when you think about it as well, regulation and compliance, I mean, it's very language based. Regulations are written by essentially legal professionals and compliance people. So it's about interpreting complex language, complex legal texts, and large language models are now incredibly good at doing those kind of tasks.
Which there's so many different types of nuances and interpretations in that as well. So it's a pretty big undertaking to even start applying that.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think it's only really now, as large language model technology in particular has advanced, that we can use these kind of automated systems to make those kind of interpretations that would have been the domain of humans. But it's also really worth saying as well that we can't just rely on AI models making those assumptions and interpretations. It's very much AI supporting human compliance professionals in their job, and that kind of human oversight is incredibly important.
And why do we still need that human in the loop rather than we can just try to automate it through AI, would you say?
I mean, a lot of it's around still trust in AI decision making. I mean, as in all areas of life, we're putting more and more trust in decisions being made, not by humans even. So trusting that and trusting decisions being made by these sort of slightly still untrustworthy technologies. Yeah. I mean, it's really important to have that oversight. And I think, there's a danger as well of automation complacency, where we start to kind of it's much easier to let the machines, let the models make the decisions. So having that oversight and building that in kind of smart ways in human workflows is critical.
Yeah. Tell me about ISO 42001. What is this, and why should we care about it?
Yeah, so ISO 42001, it's an international standard by the International Standards Organization in AI management systems. So management of AI systems, essentially. And it's really around the governance and management of companies developing AI solutions and also using AI. And it's really like the principles in it are ethics and trustworthy use of AI, managing risks, data governance, communicating to stakeholders. So, for example, if issues happen with AI systems, how do they report those and so on. So it's this kind of blueprint for, really good AI governance and the state of the art in terms of how we manage those systems.
So is this helping companies just have better guidance, practices, systems and processes, and having kind of an underlying golden thread of just doing it correctly? Is that kind of a framework, kind of like painting through numbers to help them with it?
So I'd say, there's really a number of benefits to implementing ISO 42001. And one of them is like you say, it's a really good blueprint for following best practice in AI governance. It's making sure you're kind of, as an organization, thinking of all the critical aspects of governing AI and data properly. And it's, industry standard best practice.
So,
and just a really important thing as well as a secondary part is, okay, so you do all this great work and you've this great governance in place, but how do you sort of prove that to customers?
yes.
And especially in the compliance domain, we work with a lot of financial companies, financial institutions. They're really risk averse. So they want to know, when we say that we've really good AI governance, we've very good data management principles, that we do what we say. And you can show that if you are ISO 42001 certified, you're proving that you have these credentials.
So you're going through all those different steps and you're giving that assurance and trust, which is so, so important, particularly in the world that we're living in at the moment. Where do you start? How do you even start to kind of get one of these kind of credentials? What's the starting point?
Yeah, so I mean, the ISO standards are kind of quite well laid out in terms of they're quite clear of what they cover. So it's about implementing a management system of your AI systems and solutions and your data practices according to these standards. Now, it's very much industry standard practices. So, I think a lot of companies, who've good data governance and good AI governance in place are kind of doing most of what the standard probably entails already. But, to get certified, actually sort of to prove that you're compliant with ISO 42001, that needs to be audited by an external accredited agency that can do that. And that's really the gold standard when you can show that you're following all the principles. And, that needs to be continually reviewed as well.
So within the product that or service that Corlytics is offering to customers, am I right in saying that you're actually eating your own dog food as well in terms of you're using these kind of systems on yourself? You're actually making sure that AI is compliant in terms of how you're using AI, and then you're then switching to your customers to say, okay, here's the systems and processes we'd recommend for our product. You're going to start to utilize it. So you're kind of wearing both hats.
Yeah, that's right. We're in an interesting space actually, where exactly the solutions that we provide generally to financial institutions and also health and life science. So these highly regulated industries, they're really struggling with the ability to manage complex regulation and compliance. Yeah. It's a really sort of complex world. There's lots of changing regulations. It's a huge range of different jurisdictions all around the world and different applications of it. And we're providing the solutions to help them do that. But like you say, at the same time, it's really important for us as a company to be compliant ourselves with all the regulations, and particularly around AI.
So what would be a kind of a practical use case that someone's listening in or watching that they could see, let's say they worked in financial services or life sciences, that you could help solve?
Yeah, so I mean, some of the financial institutions, up to 10% of their workforce, like human workforce, is in compliance and risk. So these are people working through large volumes of changing regulations and trying to really map that complexity down to ensure what they're doing as an organization is compliant with the law. And it's not like no one's trying to break the rules or get fined here for breaking the rules. Everyone wants to be compliant. It's just so hard to do that because of the complexity of those regulations. So bringing AI solutions into it, and what we provide as Corlytics are tools and solutions to automate aspects of that and to assist in these kind of human workflows of what compliance teams are doing already, making their jobs easier, giving them the information that they need to make quicker, more optimal decisions, and sort of guiding them. But the oversight, the final decision is always down to the human. The human makes that.
And would you be helping with, let's say you kind of got a workflow or kind of a standard operating procedure, would you be helping to kind of streamline that workflow or automate parts of that workflow to maybe help people not necessarily do the manual task, but automate some of that? Or am I kind of going off on a tangent there?
Yeah, no, that's it. There's a lot of opportunity for AI, particularly in the legal and regulatory space, to sort of automate analysis of complex legal documents and to provide that analysis and interpretation, but then with the human can kind of look over that and ensure that that's correct.
It blows my mind that only 5% of our listeners actually subscribe to the podcast. We've got one favour to ask. Please, can you subscribe to the podcast? If you like our content, you subscribing will make a huge difference to the guests that we can get on the show and also be a voice for AI applied across Ireland, but doing it the right way. Now back to the show. Let's say I have a legal department and we get in terms and conditions from a supplier, and we would be going through those terms and conditions, and there's a lot of compliance and regulation required in that area. Could your product or service help within that process as well of reviewing those terms?
That's an application for this technology, and the particular focus of Corlytics is actually regulation from regulators. So you can even take the EU AI Act. Yeah. That's a regulation. It's from a regulator, the European Commission. So if I was a company and I was developing, as we are, so this is, as you said, we're both doing this and providing the solutions to help this. But if I was an AI company and we want to be compliant with the EU AI Act, we want to make sure that everything we're doing is kind of linked back to the requirements of that act. Yes. But if that act is changing really quickly, and it has changed a few times, but if you think that's one act or one regulation, but then you might have hundreds across finance and across health, life sciences, all different areas and different jurisdictions.
How do you even keep up?
Exactly.
Yeah, and even with the EU Act, and we were talking about the online course that we're putting out there, and I've interviewed quite a few of the rapporteurs. I'm still none the wiser in so many parts of it that I feel totally overwhelmed with the complexity. I can only imagine if you're a business trying to introduce AI to the marketplace, those nuances and how you might interpret them are very, very difficult to work through. Yeah,
and then it goes to actually proving that what you're doing, you've controls and processes in place that are compliant with those. So it goes the whole kind of chain through everything to, the actual sort of end uses and end applications of what the company is actually doing.
Yeah, and one thing we do know is that the EU Act, it's full steam ahead. There was there's a few queries or questions. Was it going to be paused? Was it going to be changed? But they're full on with it.
Yeah.
What has been the biggest change for you with the whole LLMs and agents, and what type of ways are you using AI yourself day to day?
Yeah, so we're using a lot of language model technology. With legal language, legal documents, it's in really kind of nice sweet spot for large language model technology at the moment. So kind of the way I like to think about it sometimes is, on the one side you have language written for human interpretation. We're talking like Shakespeare, plays, cinema. It's the language in that. It's for completely open to interpretation, and that's the beauty of it. Yes. On the other side, you have computer code, no interpretation. It does exactly what it stated to do. The sort of legal and compliance and regulations area, it's in the middle. There's a little bit of interpretation in it because it has to be open enough to adapt to new things. But at the same time, it's quite specific in what it needs to say. And actually, large language model technology is really good now at this kind of center area where there's some interpretability needed, but at the same time, we're not doing a critique of a Shakespeare play here.
Yeah, and do you find on a personal level, because you've been around AI for over a decade, right? You know it so well. You've seen so many different applications across so many different industries. Do you find yourself using it in a different way the last couple of years where you're saving yourself a significant amount of time?
Yeah, well, it's the capabilities have advanced hugely with large language, and particularly actually the kind of democratization of AI. So up until only a few years ago with the sort of ChatGPT and AI assistants as well, it was very much something that no one could really use unless you were a data scientist or an AI practitioner. And now, we're very much looking in Corlytics, and we're sort of rolling out these tools internally across the company so that it's not just the data science team that does the AI, or even trials or sort of prototypes things. Like the legal experts and legal analysts can use these tools themselves.
So you're trying to drive everyone to have literacy irrelevant of their job. You're trying to make sure they have that.
AI literacy is critical.
Yeah.
And you know this, I think more than anyone as well, that, you know, the understanding, I think, from people of this technology, not detailed how the technology works, but what it can do, what the risks are, and how to kind of live your life around these kind of tools in a safe, responsible way, and not be sort of exploited by these technologies as well. It's like, I think it's critical that everyone understands that.
Sometimes I feel really guilty when I'm walking around like my local shops, or people just working as a shoemaker, working a butcher, and they just no idea how quickly this technology is advancing. And for them, it probably won't even make much of an impact in the short term. But I do think the next 3 years, it's going to dramatically change society in so many fundamental ways. Do you see that? Do you think it's underhyped, overhyped? Where do you kind of see it day to day?
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of hype around AI, I think. A lot of that sort of misplaced as well, I think, to a certain extent. I mean, AI is amazing, and, you know, it is advancing all the time. But at the same time, I think one of the hype is about, you know, you often hear about AI replacing human decisions and kind of replacing us. I really don't. I think that's kind of overhyped. I think AI, I see it as a tool that's helping humans, helping us do what we need to do or want to do. The agency of humans isn't really being taken out here. It's just being assisted by these tools.
And what do you think about people who are just not going to be getting assisted by those tools? Do you think, like, because I kind of see it as going into a fight with a knife and a spoon. So, like, if I'm assisted with AI, I'm significantly better than if I'm not, if I know to use the tools.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's definitely, there's a risk of having this kind of technological divide as well, where, you know, it's not sort of equal access to these tools. And, you know, in a more basic level, we see this access to the internet, for example. There's regions of the world that you know, don't even have reliable internet access. So I think that's a concern, that, you know, these won't be completely democratized, these tools, and there'll be those who have access to them and the knowledge to use them, and those that don't. So again, that's why I think it's really important to have this knowledge and understanding and education and awareness across the whole of society in how to use these tools. Yeah. And, you know, again, it doesn't, you see a lot of AI sort of education, I think, focusing really on the algorithms and like down in the weeds. But I like to, you know, the analogy of driving a car, I don't know how the engine really works. Even the driving test, you know, you open the bonnet and you ask to point to two things, but it's a tiny fraction of the test. But actually learning how to drive the car, to use it safely, and the risks in it, that, you know, that's what it's about, right?
Yeah, it's funny with the whole, with like, Waymo has now got close to 1 million driverless rides per week now in San Francisco, and Uber's coming into London now. I don't even think my kids will be doing a driving test in the years to come.
Yeah, that's going to be very true.
I don't think they'll need a driving license. I just think it's all going to be autonomous. And when you look at the statistics, it's significantly safer to get in an autonomous vehicle than it is to get into a regular driver. Any particularly books that have impacted your life, or any one book that you'd recommend? It could be sports, it could be technology, but if there's any kind of moment that you had, there was a significant book that impacted that you'd recommend our listeners.
Yeah, I think there's really a lot of interesting books at the moment being written on kind of the impact of technology in society. One book I read recently, Nexus, by Yuval Harari.
He wrote Sapiens.
That's right. Yeah. So, you know, I think he's a really interesting thinker, kind of the broader perspective of how technology is influencing and society influences technology.
I didn't read it, but I saw a lot of different videos about it. He gets pretty dark on it.
Yeah.
Did you think it was fair assessment, or is it?
Well, I suppose it's an author's job to kind of, you know, go dark to get, you know, it makes it, you know, interesting thing to read and to see the whole perspective of the kind of pros and cons of these technologies and how they are and might play out as well. I wouldn't be so pessimistic on it, but I think it comes down to, are people naturally optimist or pessimist? You can follow whatever path. There's all those paths you can follow, whatever you want.
One thing is for sure, there's going to be a lot of unintended consequences.
That's true.
That I think we just need to be kind of cognizant for, because you really don't understand how the technology is going to impact you until a few years later on, until it's out of the box.
Yeah.
And how we expect people to use it and how people really use it is going to be two different things.
Yeah.
Particularly interested in the whole kind of companions that Musk rolled out recently, and then you've got character AI with all these kind of avatars in terms of how our society is now influencing them and engaging with them. It's going to be pretty fascinating to see. But also from a business perspective, the expectation is you'll have an avatar that's an extension of your brand.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's a really interesting space, and I think it's just really hard to predict where it's going to go as well.
Yeah.
Kind of if, think back to social media and the kind of previous generation of kind of technology, and no one really predicted where that was going to go. And also with that as well, I think it's kind of been recognized that, it started out with this huge opportunity and optimism, and then it sort of went into kind of a dark place where it was sort of misused for a lot of things that wasn't kind of anticipated. But I think now we're sort of gone through that with there, and maybe the same thing will happen with AI. These things take a while to figure out.
Yeah, it's fascinating just to be kind of a passenger and watching this story unfold. But I think literacy is incredibly important, and I think it's going to be interesting what's happened to regulation, compliance, rules. It doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon. So going on this journey is going to be very, very important if you want to start to utilize this tech.
Yeah, completely. I think it's critical, and regulation is really important. There's a lot of talk at the moment of pro versus cons of regulation, and maybe is it sort of holding up innovation and putting countries and nations at a competitive disadvantage with too much regulation and this balance and so on. And yes, it can always do a better job. Regulation isn't perfect, but I think it's really, we do understand there's these risks of technology. We don't understand them, particularly with AI. I think it's our responsibility as human beings to go a bit cautiously with this.
Yeah, it's also making sure that we're cognizant of the impact it can possibly have for small businesses and trying to make sure we get it into people's hand, but giving them the rules of the road. So it is this kind of delicate dance. Depending on my mood, I go one way or the other, but having some type of regulation that we feel comfortable around as a starting point from a society we should definitely be talking about more and more. Oisin Boydell, thank you very much for being a guest on the podcast, and lovely to meet you in person for the studio.
Thanks very much, Mark. Really great conversation. Thanks.
At AI Ireland, we're helping over 1 million people become literate using artificial intelligence. And we do this in a variety of different ways. The easiest way is our AI literacy program, where we do a 60 to 90 minute program via virtual Zoom or Microsoft Teams, where we teach the rules of the road of AI, from basic business concepts to ethical and resourceful decisions on how you actually use AI every day. This is our literacy foundation. The second way we use AI training is within our workshops. These are either virtual or in-person workshops where executive leaders come and use some of the AI tools that we make available for them, that they can actually start to take their own documents and reimagine savings of time and energy, but taking away friction from the work that they do each day. Later on, we actually empower different departments, HR, finance, sales, marketing, operations, and start to utilize AI across relevant use cases to upskill their different types of departments. If you're interested and ready to go on your AI journey, we'll be able to showcase over 700 applications of applied AI about how you can actually stop reinventing the wheel and start using AI for your organization today. If you want to start out and find out a little bit about the golden thread of activities that we've got to allow you to start to utilize AI straight away, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll give you a good comprehensive overview about the arts of the possible, minus the hype, purely applied. See you then.